On a day, ladies and gentlemen, when Iran's women were out on streets without hijab to mark the second death anniversary of minority Sunni woman Mahsa Amini, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been lecturing India on minorities. In a post on Miladun-Nabi, Khamenei made uncalled for remarks. In a post, he said, and I quote, "We cannot consider ourselves to be Muslims if we are oblivious to the suffering that a Muslim is enduring in Myanmar, Gaza, India, or any other place," unquote. The statement of Khamenei has been given a strong response by the Indian government, who did not mince its words when it said, "We strongly deplore the comments made regarding minorities in India by the Supreme Leader of Iran. These are misinformed and unacceptable. Countries commenting on minorities are advised to look at their own record before making any observations about others," unquote. Now, even as Khamenei made this comment, remember, it is not the first time when the Iranian leader has spoken on minorities and the internal matters of India. In 2019, he had reacted on the Narendra Modi government's decision to abrogate Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. In 2020 and 2017 as well, he's made comments on Muslims in India. Now, here's what's ironic. Iran's own record on how it treats minorities has been terrible. There have been several instances in the past where the United Nations has condemned the treatment of religious Sunni and Baluch minorities in Iran, many of them executed. Multiple reports by Amnesty International have pointed that Sunni Muslims who live in Kurdistan and Baluchistan have long been victims of official discrimination and repression. And yet, the Supreme Leader continues to make comments that hurt the healthy ties that India and Iran share currently. To talk more about this on the broadcast, I am joined by Qamar Agha. He's a foreign affairs expert. I'm also joined by Burzine Waghmar, Center for Iranian Studies from London. In fact, currently he's in Mumbai. He's joining us from there. Good evening. Namaskar to both of you. Welcome to Mirror Now. Burzine, I'd like to start with you. What do you make of these comments by Iran's supreme leader at a time when Iran's own minority records have been condemned by world bodies and countries across the world?
And a record which is abysmal since the inception of the Islamic Republic following the 1979 revolution. So Khamenei cannot afford to talk about anything. You mentioned about Sunni minorities. Tehran is the capital of a self-styled Islamic Republic which lacks a Sunni mosque since 1979, 45 years on since the Islamic Revolution as such. I repeat, there is no mosque in Tehran for Sunnis to perform their 5 diurnal prayers. They must perforce visit a Shia mosque. And there are subtle differences in Sunnis and Shias offering prayers. And one would ask, why does an Iranian Sunni minority not feel entitled to have their own mosque? I have not even to begin to talk about how Baha'is are treated in Iran. They are beyond the pale, and their life, security, and property is at forfeiture anytime, because they are treated as Ahmadis are treated in Pakistan as heretics. Then there's the question of Iranian Jewry, who barely survives. To take a recent example, let me tell you, when President Pezeshkian was elected, the recent national elections in Iran, Jews were forced across the country, including Tehran, through instructions from the chief rabbi that they must turn out to vote. And why is that so? Well, to show the world that minorities so-called flourish in Iran, which is arrant nonsense. And Ayatollah Khamenei will do well to realize certain factors, which I must point out as an Iranist. The fact that President Rafsanjani, on his April 95 state visit to India, said that India is a model of secularism. He has forgotten that. He doesn't realize that India is home to the oldest Iranian diaspora in the world, that of Zoroastrians, who are the Parsis of the subcontinent. And India is also home to the largest 12 Shia Ithna Ashari community, of which Iran professes as a state religion. And might I also point out on the question of Kashmir, because Khamenei feels entitled to make these imprudent remarks on Kashmir. How is it that since the insurgency commenced in 1988, to date, it is only Kashmiri Sunnis from the valley who head off to Pakistan for militancy training and return to India for acts of sabotage? Not a single Kashmiri Shia, statistically speaking to date, in the last 3 decades on, has ever undergone such training. So Khamenei would do well to realize as to what is it about Kashmiri Shia who do not share his views on Article 370, on the Union Territory and other aspects as such.
Mr. Qamar Agha, we heard Burzine list out the kind of situation that is there in Iran, and therefore that brings me to the question as to what gives Iran's supreme leader that entitlement, that liberty to make repetitive statements on India's minorities and India's internal matters.
No, Iran is behaving like as if, they are the leader of the Islamic Ummah, Islamic Muslim all over the world, And his goal is to emerge as a major leader because since there is nobody at the moment. Secondly, he is using this as a card also, as a bargaining chip, rather with India or with other countries also at time, And Muslims in India, they don't like such statements because a number of times, because we are much happy here, we don't have much problems in this country. Whenever the problem comes, we have courts, we have the secular democratic character of this country, we have diversity in this country, and we have been living here almost, Muslims have been living here for almost 1,000 years. It is a blatant interference in the internal affair of the country, I believe, And I'm surprised to see this statement coming at a time when Iran is facing serious, problem with Israel, War is, there is a possibility of escalation of the war coming up to Iran, and at that time he's making such a statement. India is one country which has been supporting Palestinian cause since, since 19.
We were one of the first countries to actually recognize the state of Palestine.
Palestine, we have recognized since the time of Gandhi, Nehru, Indira, Rajiv, you name anybody, including Prime Minister Modi. Modi himself has visited Palestinian office in Ramallah. So we have been consistent. Not only that, large number of Palestinian students are studying in India. Then, we have number of other programs, with Government of India's funding in occupied territories. The humanitarian assistance extended to the Palestinian Authority by India, and yet he's coming out with such a statement. I don't see any logic behind it. Why such a thing happened. Anyway, this is not the first time. Earlier, once more, earlier he has talked about Kashmir. Then now this general Muslim community is talking about India is building also building a Chabahar port. The connectivity between Iran with Central Asia that would connect, and connect India or South Asia with through Chabahar port to
Which is why the question, Mr. Agha, that, when you have such healthy ties going on between the two countries, why would you keep commenting on the internal matters of India? But let me take this to Burzine. Burzine Waghmar, one of the things that Qamar Agha said is the fact that Iran wants to be the self-proclaimed leader of the Islamist countries, of the West Asian nations, and how it wants to, sort of speak for all Muslims across the world, not just in Iran. Do you see that sort of moving forward for it? Does this kind of a position, do these kind of statements actually work with the Muslim population then?
Far from it. That is Tehran's modus operandi, and that is how the Tehran's foreign ministry establishment, but also the intelligence services and the deep state operates. And it's the latter point I will dilate upon now, in that Iran is responsible for instability in its near abroad. There's not a single GCC country which has healthy ties with Iran, arguably barring side Muscat. I mean, its interference in all aspects of the Near East is commented upon by the Arab world. That is a patent fact, not just with the Yemen civil war, but in Lebanon with its proxies. Iraq is a client state of Iran, just as Pakistan makes Afghanistan so. It has happened for all purposes and intents since the 2003 war. Then there's Syria to discuss. So Iran spreads instability right across the Near East and tries to garner support as its so-called moral voice of the Muslim world, which doesn't wash with the Arab world, predominantly Sunni at best and at large. But also, then you must ask yourself, what does Iran gain by shedding Ukrainian blood, by supporting the weapons and drones to Moscow? Not to mention IRGC commanders who are in occupied Crimea directing warfare alongside their Russian counterparts. So Iran has nothing going for it as a social pariah of a country, a dysfunctional economy, a thoroughly discredited regime which has never been representative of its population for the last 45 years since the revolution. And even prior to the revolution, Indians would do well to realize that during the Shah's times, when relations were also equally close, but on the question of Kashmir, the Shah also supported Pakistan unabashedly during the 65 and 71 wars. So on Kashmir, this must be pointed out that Iran does not look at the merits of the case, but simply falls in line with what it considers to be the Muslim loyalty card playing factor.
Qamar Agha, one of the things that comes to the mind when Iran's supreme leader makes such statements on minorities in India is the fact that if you are so concerned about minority Muslims in India, why aren't you commenting about the minority Muslims in China? What about the Uyghurs? There have been several reports which have confirmed that the Uyghurs are not treated well in China. Is it because of the fact that with India you can make such statements and get away, but with China you cannot, and therefore you do not touch upon that topic at all?
This has been raised by many leaders, individuals in all over the world, because Uyghurs are suffering. Uyghurs are being, marginalized by the Chinese authorities, and yet, neither Iran nor Pakistan takes up their issue. Both of them are not taking up their issues, because they have bilateral ties or they have deep military ties with China, economic and otherwise, So they don't talk much about the Uyghurs, That is a problem. That's a major, criticism of the Iranian foreign policy. But one thing I tell you, Iran has also suffered a lot. 8 years of Iraq war with Iran, 1 million Iranians died. It's not easy, It's not. This is just one-sided picture, that Iran is a bully. Iran is harassing everybody in the region. That's not the Iran doesn't have that capacity, It's a very deep-seated problem between Arab and Persian, which is continuing for hundreds of years. That is there, And the Iraq war was subsidized by the other Arab regimes in the region, especially the oil-producing conservative Arab regimes have funded that regime, Saddam Hussein at that time. Besides this, now Iranians have excellent relation with Saudi Arabia, even with Bahrain and its other neighbor, Azerbaijan, they have improved. With Qatar, they have excellent ties for a very long time. So Iran is back in the region, because now their cooperation is going on. But the problem is, why he has issued such a statement against it. For the minorities in India, because we don't look, the Indian minorities doesn't look towards Iran, as our fellow has just mentioned, whether it is Kashmir or whether here, because we have a democracy, we have a rule of law, we have a constitution. We have, if we have problems, we go to the court. And then second thing, most of the Indian political parties support the Muslim cause. Whenever there is a problem, they come up with support, The Babri Masjid case was fought by all the, the lawyers were from a majority community, not by Muslim community. Or most of the time we see, they come and...
and therefore, Mr. Agha, let me also ask you then, when such statements are made, would it have a strong impact on the India-Iran relationship, which currently stand at a fairly healthy tie that we have been seeing between the two countries?
We have very historic ties, and I don't think one statement, his statement will have far-reaching consequences on India's ties. We need Iran. Iran is our near neighbor, It's a gateway to Central Asia, and we don't want Iran, Pakistan, China access emerging in near future. We don't want that to happen, he has created problem for his foreign ministry also, I'm sure, by issuing such a statement. And they need India too, because India is very important for them. The scheme of things for South and East Asia, India is one of the most important pillar in their foreign policy, because their relation with Pakistan or Afghanistan is not very cordial. And I don't see any merit why such a statement was issued, at this time when Iran is facing serious problem with Israel or with other countries.
I think Iran's top leadership needs to be extremely careful at the moment, Mr. Agha, that both countries would need, and Iran, of course, needs India as a friend, one of the few friends actually in this part of the world that are there for Iran. But I'll have to leave it there, Mr. Qamar Agha and Mr. Burzine Waghmar. Thank you very much to both of you gentlemen for joining us on Mirror Now and sharing your perspective. Thank you very much.